Let's move on to the contrast blend modes. So here we have our silhouette on and our green background. We can change the background color if you want just by double clicking the green right there and changing the color. So we want this to be more of a dramatic pink color. We can do that. So now if we select our silhouette and we change from normal to overlay, this is a contrast blend mode. So what's happening is that the darker parts are getting darker and the lighter parts are getting lighter. If we put this above our seagull and turn on seagull, you see that it's actually, and let's change the seagull to normal, you see that everything becomes a little bit more contrasted, and it's a very actually cool look. I really like the overlay option. It's kind of a combination of the multiply and the screen modes. So we saw multiply and screen. Screen is great for getting rid of blacks in your image. Multiply is great for getting rid of whites. Overlay is kind of a combination of that. Soft light is very similar. It's just a little bit softer in the way that things are blended. Hard light becomes a little bit more dramatic. Things get more contrasted, and really the parts of the image that are dark don't blend with the background at all. Going to vivid light, the colors get more contrasted, more saturated. You can see for both images. Linear light, the colors get a little bit even more darker and contrasty, so a little bit more intense than vivid. And then the next one, moving from linear light to pin light and hard mix, these just get a little bit more funky. The colors get really intense and crazy. And of course, if you see hard mix, the colors, actually the threshold changes so that colors become single colors rather than blends of colors. So they only use a few colors in this blend mode. These are types of blend modes that I don't use very often. If you have a specific use, you might someday flip on the linear light or vivid light and say, hey, that's perfect for this graphic I'm creating. But I typically use the more popular ones like screen, lighten, overlay, soft light, and multiply. I'm just going to quickly go over the other ones. So we have these inversion and cancellation ones down here. So difference, which actually flops the colors of the background. So where there's black, the background image shines through. That's where the blue sky shines through. But in the mids and the lights, you have the actual blue and orange of the sky. It actually becomes pink and orange in this version. If I turn off this background, you can see what happens is that we get this completely pink image shining through the black silhouettes, and then the skies become this green and blue, which is the opposite of that red and orange of the actual silhouette image. If we go to different exclusion, it's a very similar thing, but instead of it being as contrasty, it becomes a little bit more gray. With subtract and divide, these are other options that actually cancel out pixels depending on how they are blending. With subtract, the pixels become black. With divide, they become white when they cancel each other out, when they become too dark. And then lastly, we have our component group. And when you use hue, it keeps the hue of the active layer and blends the luminance and saturation of the lower layers. So you basically get the image from the lower layer with the colors of the top layer. Interesting, huh? So you get this bird with the colors of the top layer. We got the blacks down here, we got the oranges up here, and the blues in the sky, where this one is blue as well, the silhouette layer. Saturation keeps the saturation of this top layer and blends the brightness and the hue from the lower layers. With color, it keeps the color of the active layer and blends the hue and saturation of the active layer with the brightness of the lower layer. Let me flop these and it might look a little bit different. So let me change this to normal and then change the seagull to saturation, and then color. So you can see here that this bottom image, the colors change to this top layer. If I put green up here or pink up here, turn off that and make the pink layer color, it makes the sky pink. So it's basically making the colors of the bottom image the color of the top image. So just change that back, turn our seagull back on. And if we turn off this silhouette image, you can see what this does to the background right there with the pink background. And then if we change from color to luminosity, you can see what it does. Luminosity basically keeps the brightness of this top image and it blends it with the color of the background image. So another way to, instead of having the color of the top image go to the bottom image, luminosity has the color of the bottom image go to the top image. Okay, so those are blending modes, and there's a lot going on there. And a lot of this probably went over your head because for a while it went over my head as well. So the main thing with blending modes is just to play around with them. You will find modes that you use more often. Multiply, screen, overlay, and soft light. Those are my favorite ones. Those are the ones that I use a lot. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next lesson.